Nigeria. You're welcome to another episode of The Agenda on this dial. We're broadcasting live from Iyagoku here in Ibadan. And I am Chike Ubogu. Okay, so today we confront a quiet national emergency that is neither quiet nor distant. The deliberate year after year production of jobless graduates. We'll examine how the pipeline of frustrated young Nigerians feed election violence and starves economic growth. Just about 6 months before the 2027 general elections. We're talking about this now. Well, my guest is an economist and also a public affairs commentator, Ignatius Ofino. It's good to have you again on the agenda.
Good morning, Mazi Chike Obuogu.
How are the animals on the farm?
Fine, they are doing fine.
But they're not all equal.
All animals ought to be equal.
But some are more equal.
But in the animal farm, they are supposed to be equal. But in the so-called secular humanity, they are not equal.
They are not equal. Well, we have an interesting discourse this morning, and then let's just begin with figures. Now, numbers that should keep every policymaker awake. And I want you to listen to this. Roughly 40% of Nigeria's youth are unemployed or underemployed. Among university and polytechnic graduates, the figure is often higher in certain disciplines. Every year we graduate hundreds of thousands more into the economy that simply does not even absorb them. They get in there, but the economy is not embracing them. All right, Ignatius Ofino, I just want to ask, is the problem merely lack of jobs? Or is it something deeper than that? Is it a structural mismatch between what our universities produce and what the economy actually needs? What is the problem?
It is all encompassing. The structural mismatch is there. Then the failure on the part of the government. So when we are talking about the labor force of a country, what does it mean? It means the number of people that are being employed and those who are willing to be employed but there is no job for them. When you then add up everything together, becomes the labor force of that country. I repeat again. When we are talking about the labor force of a country or the working force of a country, it consists of what? The total number of people that are being employed and those who are willing to be employed but there is no job for them. But it's rather sad and unfortunate in this country that when we are talking about human capital development in Nigeria, it is quite low. Because year in, year out, we are turning out graduates from the universities, from the polytechnics, from colleges of education, from monotechnics, and yet they are not being absorbed into the Nigerian economy. As employees, there's a big problem on ground. All encompassing. As a result of what? Failure on the part of the government. We have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. When you look at the government policy on labor, it is not favorable. What we have, even those who are gainfully employed for now, they are still being classified as what? Underemployed. Because the salary or the wages they earn, either weekly or monthly, cannot sustain them over a given period of time. So there is a big problem on ground, especially producing jobless graduates that poses a threat to national stability.
You are an economist, and let us look at the economic cost of this at this moment. How does a large cohort of jobless graduates drag drag down growth in the country, in Nigeria?
It's usually drag down growth. When we are talking about economic growth, it's talking about the total number or the total quantity of goods and services that the citizens of a country produces at a given year within your country and outside your country. That is what we are talking about, economic growth. You are talking about increase in production output. Economic growth is not the same thing as economic development. But when economic growth is being sustained over time, it leads to what we call economic development. Now let me give you an instance. What are the factors of labor? What are the factors of labor? Land, capital.
The factors of production.
The factors of production. Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Yes. Those are the 4 factors of production. Now we are talking about labor here now. There is a gap. And there is a problem. So when you are talking about labor as factor of production, you are talking about what? Human energy and human skills in the production process. So there is a big problem on ground. Now you are producing graduates, and these graduates, they are not being gainfully employed. And you are not even introducing a policy that will ensure that this labor themselves can decide to be self-employed or self-reliant. Government must introduce what we call good policies on ground. Because you can choose not to work in the civil service. When you are talking about the civil service, we are talking about public jobs, public ministries, departments, and agencies of government. But some don't want to work in ministries, departments, and agencies of government. That they want to be self-reliant. Government must introduce what we call a favorable job policy and opportunities.
That's where, you mentioned the 4 factors of production.
Yes.
Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And so let's look at entrepreneurship now. Some people argue that entrepreneurship is the answer to this joblessness of our graduates. And that is saying that create your own job. Now, for us, for the sake of this discussion this morning, is that realistic at scale? If you say we should go by the way of entrepreneurship, is it realistic?
When you say we should go by the way of entrepreneurship,
yes,
where is the funding?
Okay.
Finance. There is no company in Nigeria today or in the world that does not have what we call asset and liability. Asset is what belongs to the company or the business firm.
True.
Then liability is what you are owing others that you use in the production process. And before you can get access to funds or finance, you have to have what we call collateral. Where is the collateral? Nobody is going to give you loan in bank without your collateral. And your collateral must commensurate with that loan. And the loan is not zero interest loan. It is an interest-based loan. Minimum of 25% or 30%. And there is penalty for default. So there is a big problem on ground. The business policy by organized private sector is not even favorable. Let me give you an instance. They will tell you that you must not be more than 24 years of age if you are applying for a job in the private sector.
And
then
you have
5 years working experience.
That's it.
And you gain admission to the university at the age of 18. And you study a course of 4 years.
That's
18, that is 22. You're now going to serve at the age of what? 23.
Yeah.
Then now, they say you must not be more than
24.
But 5 years working experience.
Not realistic.
It's not realistic. So business policies by the organized private sector is not even favorable. We have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. Let me give you an instance of what happened. Sometimes my heart bleeds. I respect this man, Alhaji Aliko Dangote. But he did something that to me, my heart bleeds. I will give you an instance. He decided to build the largest private refinery in Africa. He must be commended for that. Though we know that when you look at most of his drivers, most of them are Nigerians, especially they are graduate, fine. But he did something that my heart bleed.
How? What did he do?
My heart still bleed.
What did he do?
Alhaji Aliko Dangote decided to employ over 11,000 Indians into that private refinery.
Okay.
And he still says he's a patriot.
Well, you just made mention of something.
Business policy of the organized private sector. What you are saying is this, that you are demarcating the Nigerian graduates before the rest of the world. That is what he has just done.
So the question is, how many graduates are employable?
Now, the box stop on the table of ASU. ASU is in charge of producing university graduates. ASUP is in charge of producing polytechnic graduates. And these graduates are not being employed because of the false populism that Nigerian graduates are unemployable. And ASU and ASUP are not saying anything about it. What stopped ASU and ASUP boycotting lecture in solidarity as a way of reacting? That you ask us to produce graduates. We are producing graduates, and you are saying that our product is bad.
Must everyone go to the university?
Everyone must not go to the university.
So what then happens to our technical college?
The technical college
Vocational
too.
center.
The technical college too. They are also part of the graduates. When we are talking about graduate, it's all encompassing. Even if you graduate from the secondary school, you are still a graduate.
Even in primary school, living
certificate
is a graduate.
A graduate to me. But everyone must be involved to ensure that we have a stable economy. So there is a problem. I just gave you an example. And that is a bad precedence from Alhaji Aliko Dangote. And you know, most of these graduates, they love eating his noodles. In Sena Climb, people will stop eating his noodles. In Sena Climb, people will go to that refinery and ground it because I'm not happy.
Comrade Ofino.
11,000 Indians.
Yeah, but he still
Foreign nationals.
He still has Nigerians there.
No, I'm just trying to say 11,000 Indians.
Yeah, there might just be a quota system.
No, look at Trump, my friends. My friend Trump. Trump will never do that. He said, think America first. Alhaji Aliko Dangote must think Nigeria first.
Well, when you mention noodles, we need to make it clear because there are different types of noodles.
He has his own noodles too.
Okay. So let's get that straight.
He has his own sugars too, and salt too.
Okay, maybe you might just be his spokesman.
I'm not his spokesman.
I hope the traffic department is listening, so they find Ofino after this program.
I wouldn't know, but I have to defend citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Okay, so now still talking about, I asked a question. Must everyone be a university graduate?
No.
There's a polytechnic there.
Yes.
And then there has been this bias lately of a dichotomy of the polytechnic degree, the HND and the BSc. That conversation has been going back and forth. And you want to ask, well, how will it help the average graduate? Whether you are a HND holder or you're a BSc holder, shouldn't they be at par, or should they be? Should there still be that dichotomy?
We mustn't mix it up.
Okay.
Diploma is not the same thing as degree. We mustn't mix it up. We don't know. There's nothing wrong if you are trying to show empathy. There's nothing wrong if you are trying to show empathy. It's just like when you're working as a lecturer in the polytechnic. You can never rise to the rank of a professor. You can only rise to the rank of a professor in the university. It's a rule. So if you choose to own a degree, you go to the university to earn that degree. But when we are talking about the dichotomy, it's too glaring. We know that degree holder must earn more than HND holder, fine. We know that HND holder must earn more than OND holder, fine. But when you are talking about contribution to the national economy, all of them are contributing. But where the problem lies is this: the government has introduced what we call a bad policy. Do you know what the bad policy the government introduced? That university graduate is superior to polytechnic graduates. And it's affecting polytechnic graduates. Psychologically, the social stigma is there. That is where we got it wrong. What we have said is this: even though you earn a degree, you are not superior to a polytechnic graduate. Though you may be earning more than a polytechnic graduate, fine. But that does not say that you are superior to a university graduate. But we have created a scenario in this country that university graduate is superior to a polytechnic graduate, or polytechnic graduate is inferior to university graduate. That was where we got it wrong.
Well, let's drive back to the major discussion for today, and that is the danger in producing jobless graduates in Nigeria. Now, let's look at the darker connection now. That dark connection in the Nigerian polity. Now, how does the pool of idle graduates feed election violence?
Fine. The struggle for survival.
Remember, I talked about it being the darker side.
Yes.
The darker connection.
The struggle for survival.
Okay.
Graduates are being adjudged to be skilled labor. Any country that produces more of a skilled labor, that country is bound to experience economic growth and also attain economic development. But here now, graduates that is being produced, they are not gainfully being employed. Then the struggle for survival is there. The survival instinct. They will choose to become political thugs in order to do what? To survive. And at the end of the day, what are we going to be experiencing in this country? Electoral violence. Life will be lost in the process. Private and public properties will be destroyed in the process. So let me give you an instance. Let's assume we produce 1 million graduates, Ceteris Paribus, and those 1 million graduates are being employed, whether they are gainfully employed in the civil service or they are self-employed. I'm just trying to give you an instance. And now they are bound to pay tax, and each of them are paying 1 naira as tax. 1 naira multiplied by 1 million employed graduates, we amount to what we call 1 million naira. That shows that 1 million naira is being contributed into the economy on a monthly basis, and it's going to stimulate economic growth. But here now, we are having 1 million unemployed graduates. What are they going to contribute? 0 naira. 0 naira multiplied by 1 million will give you what? 0 naira. Then what are they contributing to the economy? They are contributing nothing. So the economy is what? It's losing. Then the country is also what? Losing in terms of what? Economic growth. But when you are talking about economic growth, you are talking about the production,
the labor force.
Yeah. The labor force. So we have to be frank and sincere. And now they want to survive. They now do the wrong thing. Electoral violence. And the country will experience what we call national insecurity. No one will be safe anymore. And it will also debar foreign direct investment into your country.
Okay.
Because you don't have a stable political climate.
Yeah.
And nobody will want to be, no investor will be willing to invest in a volatile condition.
Well, is there really any evidence that higher education levels among unemployed graduates actually increase the sophistication of electoral violence?
Yes! Even electoral fraud. Those that are graduates.
How? Break it down for our listener.
Yes, yeah, those who are graduates, they are highly skilled labor.
Highly skilled labor?
Yes, the graduates. When you go to the university or polytechnic, there is a course you have to take in computer to operate the computer. Because now, when you want to apply for a job, they want to know your computer literacy level. You don't tell them that you don't know how to handle the computer. It's an aberration. As a current university graduate or a polytechnic graduate, you must know how to operate the computer. So the tendency is there. Don't be surprised. They can decide to hack INEC server and portal to disrupt the system. Out of what? Frustration. Out of war, as a way of showing their dissatisfaction against the ruling government.
So let's look at policy failures now and responsibility. So, and that will lead me to the question, asking you, okay, who do we blame? Do we blame universities for this? Do we blame the private sector? Do we blame the government? Who should be blamed? Or should the gods be blamed too?
God will not do for man what man can do for himself.
Okay.
Nature has provided everything that we need for our survival, especially in Africa. Africa doesn't need to be poor. Africa supposed not to be poor, but it's as a result of bad leadership. Let me give you an instance. Every day in the civil service, people retire. I hope it's not a hasty generalization. I know in the civil service, people retire every day. I'm talking about federal civil service, state civil service. Because the day I applied for a job was not the day you also applied for a job. So when you attain the age of 60 or so, or 35 years in service.
Or better still put as being relatively, people relatively retired daily.
Yes, daily.
In the civil service. It's
yes,
relative.
even monthly and yearly. But now, there is no way government has decided to lift the embargo. There is still job embargo in the civil service.
So talking about...
The job embargo is there. Yeah. When people are retiring, even we have workers that die. When they work out there in the civil service, is he or she being replaced? Is he or she not supposed to be replaced?
Remember
by new entrants?
Yeah, you remember.
But there is a job embargo. So we are now having civil servants doing 5 different jobs but being paid for 1.
Remember, we are talking about the dangers of producing jobless
graduates.
Now, who should be responsible for this? Who bears the responsibility? As I asked earlier, is it the government, is it the private sector, or is it the universities themselves?
The government should bear the responsibility the more.
How?
Because the government ought to have provided job for the graduate. When you're talking about universities, public universities established by government, then when you're talking about education, education is a social good. I repeat again, education is a social good. It is been assumed that if you have a highly skilled country or economy, your economy will attain what we call economic growth and economic development. Then there is bound to be a civilized country because people are educated. But now those who are being educated and being as graduates, they are not being gainfully employed. And they said an idle hand is the workshop. Is the devil's workshop.
So, despite the fact that you just blamed government for not creating an enabling environment or creating jobs, would you also say they should go into entrepreneurship? Because some states already claim that they are doing skill programs and empowerment schemes here and there. You hear programs, the wife of a governor, the wife of the governor of this state, wife of governor of that state, state A, state B, always doing empowerment programs. Senators are coming up with empowerment programs and all that. But all these empowerment programs, are they making a measurable dent?
They are not.
Why?
Conditional cash transfer, they are fraudulent. Conditional cash transfer is a fraud.
Oh.
That is not what we need. We need jobs.
Okay.
Not grants. Not empowerment. Create the industries. The raw material is there in Africa, but the industries are not there. Let me give an instance. What Abraham Lincoln said. He said, you can fool some of the people all of the time, and all of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. Industries. Is it not an aberration? Someone read computer engineering and is not being employed in a computing firm. Is it not an aberration? Somebody that read petroleum engineering end up becoming a bike rider, a commercial bike rider. He is supposed to work in modular refineries. We have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. What this country needs is what we call industries.
Okay.
Government should support the organized private sector. Give them loans. You know, there's one thing Adam Smith said. He said he was the one that propounded the invisible hand. Adam Smith. The forces of demand and supply.
The father of economics.
Yes. That he said the forces of demand and supply will determine the market price. The invisible hand. But Professor Maynard Keynes now said that there must be government intervention. After the 1930 depression that happened in the world, there was an economic depression that happened. The global depression.
1930.
Yes. We remember in America practiced what we call capitalist economy. It now suggested that if you don't want these industries to collapse, government must intervene. So that was why it now brought down the idea of what we call government intervention. So there's what we call the intervention policies of government. Is government actually intervening when we are talking about creation of jobs in this country, especially provision of work, industries, and business firms?
Now you've, in a larger part of this program now, you've blamed the government.
The more.
Now, would we say the government must do all things for us as citizens of Nigeria? Can't we also stand up and do some things ourselves? This create your own job syndrome. Is it not feasible? Is it not possible?
Not that it's not feasible. Where is the funding? It's the funds.
Okay.
That is where the problem lies. Let me give you an instance. Let me use livestock as an example. You can decide to buy a young bull for 500,000. A young bull. A medium-sized young bull, 500,000. And you're now going to breed it for 4 to 5 months. And both the vaccination and the feeding, you know, you have to feed it with fodder. Fodder and animal feeds. Then you have to pay for rent too, where you kept that bull. You now spend, let me say, 200 or 300,000 for a particular bull one. Your total cost of production is what? 800,000. Believe you me, during the festive period, you can sell that bull for 1.5 million, 1.6 million. How much is your profit? 800,000. Your total cost of production was what?
That's double the seed money.
Yes! I'm telling you what I know, what I have done. Feasible. But you cannot invest 800,000 in bank as fixed deposit. And it will not yield additional 800,000 for you at the end of 1 year. Agriculture is the key.
Okay.
I'm telling you what is practicable, what I have done.
Well, we'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll get to hear from you, dear audience, to take your messages on the agenda. Stick around, don't go away.
Need a professional space to bring your vision to life? Dominion Television Studios offers state-of-the-art facilities perfect for your next broadcast, commercial, corporate video, or live event. With flexible rental options, cutting-edge equipment, and a supportive team, we provide the perfect environment for high-quality productions. Unleash your creativity. For bookings, email us at marketing@dominion.org.ng. Call us on 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast and on X at Dominion Cast. Book your space today. Dominion Television, your channel of choice.
All right, welcome back from that break. It's still the agenda on Dominion here, and we are looking at the dangers in producing jobless graduates in Nigeria. And our focus is putting the perspectives right ahead of the 2027 general election, as it were. Okay, let's get to our audience because we have loads of messages there. And this one is from Mrs. Fumilayo Adekunle from Bodija. She says here, my daughter finished from the University of Ibadan in 2023 with a second-class upper in economics. She has applied to over 80 places. Over 80 places. She now teaches in a private secondary school for 45,000 naira a month. When politicians come in 2027 offering youth mobilization money, what do you think many of her mates will do? We're sitting on a time bomb. You want to respond to her?
Definitely. It's rather sad and unfortunate. This is what we are saying. A lady that read economics ought to be working in banks
Okay. Or in a financial
or
institution.
financial institution
Okay.
or in a multinational organization as a policy maker. But it's rather sad and unfortunate. We are actually sitting on a time bomb. And that is what we are saying. That you must be involved in the electoral process as citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Government policies affect your lives directly and indirectly, positively and negatively. That is what I keep saying. That is why I blame those who refuse to cast their vote. They should not complain. Because you have failed to exercise your civic responsibility as citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The outright remover of the oil subsidy, was it Ofino that removed it? It was the president that removed it based on his own conviction. We have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. The other time I was saying something about conditional cash transfer being a fraudulent conduit pipeline in Nigeria. It's a fraud. Because, ask me why. Most of the beneficiaries are members of the political parties.
Anyway, you know, I don't want us to heave so much blame on the government. Because when you have leaders, you also have followers too. And the followers have their own say and their own input in the economy or in the scheme of things. And so I asked you a question earlier, but I believe you didn't really do justice to that question. And the question is, are all graduates employable, especially the modern day graduates? Are they employable?
It's yes or no.
Okay.
It's yes or no. As a public affairs analyst, I'm a product of Abeokuta. I'm a product of UI. I'm a product of Ife. But there's always room for what called personal development. When you see me do analysis today, it's as a result of personal what? Development. Because I want to be different from other analysts. I've acquired the basic education from different schools. Abeokuta, Ibadan, and Ife. I'm on air. The evidence is there. But I chose to improve on myself. Personal development. Most of these graduates that you see today, they complain about. Some of them are theorists. Rather than becoming what? Practicalists. The organized private sector are not interested in what? In theorists. They are interested in what? Practicalists. Someone that can be able to transform 1 million naira and make it to become what? 10 million naira. In the organized private sector. Do you know why? The organized private sector is a capitalist institution. And what they are more interested is what? Minimizing costs. Maximizing what? Profit. It's just like a graduate that does not know how to handle the computer. He's a university graduate. He graduated with a first class. But we are talking about the digital economy. He doesn't know how to handle a computer. As someone who is in charge of human resources in that business organization, you will not employ such a one.
Okay.
We have to be frank and sincere. Normally, I will assume that all graduates are employable.
Are supposed to be.
Are supposed to be.
Yeah.
But now we are having variations because we have some of these graduates who actually graduated from the university, but they cannot translate theory into practical terms.
With due respect, there are some graduates who spend about 5 years studying maybe law, and they end up opening a boutique, and then you ask, did they waste 5 years studying law, 1 year law school, and then you have NYSC, and then at the end of the day, a boutique? That's entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship that does not speak well. A lawyer is supposed to work in a chamber. A medical doctor ought to work where? In the hospital.
So what if the lawyer or the medical doctor obtained that certificate based on parental influence?
The choice is there.
Okay. So there's a choice to go
There's,
into
you know this man, this senior advocate of Nigeria, Falana.
Okay.
His son. He's an artist in Nigeria.
Fouls the bad guy.
Yeah, Fouls. To please his dad, he decided to read law. That dad, I want to please you. This is your law.
So after reading law,
I've read the law for you.
he picked up the microphone.
My own is what? Music.
All right, let's go to the next comment there. It's Tunde Balogun from Challenge. It says, I employ graduates in my logistics company. Many cannot write a coherent report or use basic spreadsheet tools. The universities are not preparing them. But even the good ones struggle because the economy is not expanding fast enough. Both sides are failing. That's a comment from Tunde Balogun.
I partially agree with him. I have to be frank and sincere. There is something that is happening in Nigeria University or Polytechnic that bothers me because I always speak truth to power. We have some of them, they call themselves professor. And yet, they are also engaged in what called pastoral ministry.
Or even politics.
Pastoral ministry, that is what we call divided interest. Some of them have scored from lectures. They will now ask their postgraduate students to fill the gap for them. The knowledge that a professor is going to transmit is not the same thing like that of a postgraduate student. We have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. It's happening in the university system. ASU is not saying anything about it. You say you have attained the rank of a professor. You also take up the job of a pastoral ministry. Sometimes your church will now organize what we call retreats. Then now the professor is not going to be around for a week for lecture. And the professor will now give them assignment. It's bad. If you want to be a professor, an academic professor, be an academic professor. If you want to be a pastor, be a pastor. If you want to be an imam, be an imam. Stop creating confusion in the academic community in Nigeria. We have a lot of them. We will not mention names. But posterity will judge them. Because they are not fair to the system. You are a professor. You now take up the job of a pastor. Now, you are mixing the two together. Sometimes, they will also ask their students to attend their church. Students will not be attending their church in order to lobby for marks. How come someone that graduated with a first class cannot be able to write a coherent report? It's bad.
Well, Aisha Olawale from Mokola is saying here, as a recent graduate myself, okay, I reject the idea that we are just lazy. Many of us are ready to work. What we lack is a system that values competence over connection. Election violence is not our first choice. It is the last option when every other door is locked.
She's talking about the ideal, but here now we're talking about reality.
Reality.
Now, do you know in the civil service, there is still job embargo. But people are secretly being employed. The politicians, they are giving them slots. So those who are their loyalists, those are the beneficiaries. Who says that the federal government is still not recruiting? It is recruiting secretly. You blame the politicians. How many of them today love this country? They decided to devalue our currency. You know, the other time when I was saying something about Alhaji Aliko Dangote, I'm not trying to discredit his reputation. He has actually tried for us. I'm just trying to express my feeling because I wanted him to think Nigeria first, the Nigerian graduate. Now, the Indians you are talking about, there is what we call capital flight in economics. Whatever they earn in Nigeria, they take it back to their country. If assuming it was 11,000 Nigerians, from there, when you learn over time, you become an expert. We have to be frank and sincere. I'm looking forward to that day. Nigeria will begin to build what we call oil rigs and oil platforms. It is possible. I believe it is possible. But when someone is engaged, it's just like in the media industry. In the media industry, there's what we call first-timer experience. The day they ask you to cast the news, the tendency is there for you to fidget, to feel jittery as a human being is natural. But over time, you come over it. It becomes natural. That's the same thing. When these graduates are being employed, over time, they become an expert in that field. But when you refuse to employ them, and you are saying that they are unemployable, to me, I feel that it is bad. Because you are saying that education is a scam. You are saying that they have gone to the university and the polytechnic to go and waste good numbers of years. And it does not speak well of the reputation of a country.
Okay, because of our time, let's rush through some messages here. Dr. Kunle Adeyemi from the University of Ibadan area is saying, Comrade Ofino, can Nigeria realistically create 2 to 3 million formal jobs annually in the next 3 years? Or is that just a fantasy?
To me, I have to be very frank and sincere. It is possible.
Okay.
If we have the political will. It is the government, the politician. Nigerians must think right and vote right in the next election. I have to be frank and sincere. You know, there was one thing my friend said of recent. He was able to attract a lot of foreign direct investment into the United States economy. I'm talking about no other person than President Donald Trump. Do you know that Saudi Arabia decided to sign an investment pact with America worth $1 trillion? Of recent. Again, America was one of the countries that hosted the just concluded World Cup. Do you know the amount of money it attracted into the American economy? 19 billion US dollars. That is why you see my friend today, President Donald Trump is as excited, he's elated, he's happy. That I attracted 19 billion US dollars into the American economy. Then ask your president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, how many dollars has he attracted into the Nigerian economy? How many foreign direct investment has he attracted into the Nigerian economy? How many companies have actually come to Nigeria of recent? Those are the questions you ask. You talk about the president's reputation internationally. People will be willing to invest in your country when your country is safe.
Okay.
When you have a good business policy.
Okay.
When you have what called political stability. Now in Nigeria, we don't have security. There is political instability. We don't have a stable power supply. The cost of production in Nigeria is very high. Then when you look at the interest rate on commercial loan, it's also high. 26%, 30%.
Okay, let's take this one from Akobo and this from Mrs. Bose Ogundipe. She says, should National Youth Service Corps be redesigned into a proper 1-year paid apprenticeship with private firms instead of the current posting system?
It's a laudable idea, but it's not feasible. Because the philosophy and objective behind the National Youth Service Corps is to integrate Nigerians together. Unity in diversity. That is the core objective. That is the core value and the mission mandate of NYSC after the Civil War. It was established in 1973 just to appease the mind of Nigerians that were being dissatisfied.
Has he lived up to his billing?
It hasn't. Because Nigerians are more divided ever than before.
Shegun Afolabi from Ring Road is saying, he's asking, how do we stop politicians from recruiting jobless graduates as political thugs without criminalizing legitimate youth political participation?
Let me give you an instance. It's a matter of choice. There is the Epicurean school of thought that says that every human being have the instinct and the tendency to steal. What makes people not to steal is because of the consequence. It's not a good reason. I decide to become a thug in order to survive. Morally, it's not justified. I decide to become a kidnapper because I'm not employed. I want to become a kidnapper. It's not morally justified. I decided to become an armed robber because I want to survive. Because I'm unemployed graduate. Because the government has failed to provide job for me. So I decide to become an armed robber. It's not morally justified. It's a matter of choice. Not every graduate, unemployed graduate, will choose to become a political thug. But those who choose to become a political star is a personal choice. But there must be consequence. Consequence. Anybody found causing violence should be arrested and prosecuted according to the law. It will become a deterrent. So there's no legitimacy becoming a political talk because you are unemployed as a graduate.
Okay, so I'll take 2 questions because, okay, still so much here. Okay, we have this one from Yetunde Ojo from Songo. She says, is the federal government's student loan scheme helping mitigate this, or is it simply increasing the number of indebted jobless graduates?
When we say somebody is indebted, someone that is owing.
Yes, that's the loan scheme, the federal government loan scheme.
Definitely.
Is it helping?
To me, it's partially helping.
Okay.
But it triggered something.
Okay.
Hike in tuition fee.
Okay.
That is why I disagree with National Association of Nigerian Students. They are capitalists.
Okay, so we don't want to go to the,
Do you know why?
the fee.
They were not supposed to
Hold on
support
a bit.
the government for that loan.
Yeah,
what they would have done is this. Government should fund university, polytechnics, colleges of education.
Yeah, just hold on a bit, Comrade Ofino. Where we are driving out now is not even about the fee. What we are looking at is this. Federal government is giving out loans, student loans. Now, because of that loan, you see that we have more students getting into university because they could access these loans. Now they come out as being jobless and also indebted.
Yes, as a debtor. A debtor is always at the mercy of the creditor.
So did that student loan scheme actually help, or is it just breeding indebted jobless graduates?
Is bringing indebted jobless graduates.
Okay.
Students don't need that loan. We don't need it. I want to be frank. You know, the other time I was saying something about what this man said. Gambi Samoyo. The Africa don't need foreign grants anymore. What we need is foreign direct investment and technology. Technology transfer. That is what we need in Africa. We don't need that student loan. What the government would have done is that you regulate the tuition fees and create what we call leverage for payment. The payment leverage that you can pay 3 times, you can pay 2 times before you now proceed to the next level as a student. That's how it's supposed to be. But here now, it triggered what we call a hike in tuition fee. And we have a lot of students who are not beneficiaries. Most students were not beneficiaries of that loan. Most. And now we have seen an increase in student dropout in universities and polytechnic. We have seen some having extra year because they were unable to pay their tuition fee and they were not allowed to write the semester exam. When you are not allowed to write a semester exam, you are already having an extra year. We have to be frank and sincere.
Let's move on here. Pastor Emmanuel Alabi from Okeado is saying, Ofino, what role should the church and mosque play beyond prayer?
God will not do for man what man can do for himself. The church are closer to the politicians. Speak truth to the Mr. President. Tell him the truth. Tell Mr. Governor the truth. Tell the political candidate the truth. We need a human-first government in this country. We have to be frank and sincere to ourselves. Religious leaders have a role to play. They can also convince their followers to do the needful by voting rightly. We have to be frank and sincere.
Okay. I'll have to skip so many messages. Let's go down. Okay, let's see Grace Okonkwo from Bodija Estate saying, looking at 2027, what single policy announcement would most reduce the risk that jobless graduates are drawn into election violence?
When government decide to lift the job embargo in the federal civil service and in the state civil service, then also the organized private sector, government can decide to say, now, we are going to help. Now, let the loan be 10%. That the loan must be what? 10%, no more 20% or 30% in the next 5 years. Just to help the organized private sector and no more discrimination in the civil service as regard HND certificate and first degree certificate.
Let me put you on a spot finally, Comrade Ofino. If you had 3 minutes, only 3 minutes, to sit with a major presidential candidate or a presidential candidate for 2027, you have only 3 minutes. What would be that thing you would tell that candidate concerning this issue of ending jobless graduates in Nigeria?
The first thing I will ask him is this: are you willing to create industries in the state? If he said yes, they say how? Do you have the link internationally? Because we are having what called multinational companies all over the world. So when you are talking about a governor must have that international link, especially as regards foreign direct investment into the state. How many of these governors today have that international link? How many of them can attract American companies into their state? How many of them can attract British companies into their state? How many of them can attract French companies into their state? So that is the fundamental question.
Okay, so that's just one thing you're going to ask him, right? Yes. Okay, so out of 3 minutes, you only ask one question.
Out of 3 minutes. Yeah. Then the issue of security.
Security.
Very paramount.
Okay.
Then the issue of stable power supply. And the rest, the healthcare policy. You have to explain to us your healthcare policy, the educational policy that you have, the foreign policy you also have too. How are you going to improve on the state economy? How are you going to improve on the national economy? And the rest like that.
Well, you've given us some powerful insights, Ofino, and thank you for your clear-eyed and robust conversation this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I need you to give the youths a message.
The Nigerian youth must be willing to develop this country. This is our country. We have no other country. Nigerian youth must not be involved in cyber crime anymore. Let's devote our energy and passion into science and technology. The time has come for us to appeal to people like Davido and Burna Boy to establish a Silicon Valley for us in Africa.
Okay, thank you, Comrade Ignatius Ofino, for featuring on the agenda this morning.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we've spent some time today examining a danger that is already among us, and that is the mass production of jobless graduates and its twin threats of economic growth and electoral peace. The 2027 elections will not only choose leaders, they will test whether this country still believes its young people. Are they assets that are worth investing in? Okay, well, these are questions we need to ask ourselves. Let's continue this discussion. This is the agenda. I am Chike Ubogu. Stay positive and have a great day.